Okay, so this is the second of two videos um, for Johns Hopkins Carey, and we're looking at sort of the fiscal and macro some of the fiscal and macro implications of of the pandemic that we're in right now. And in the previous um, video, I suggested to you that okay, in order to see the impacts of this episode on the debt, you'd want to think of it usefully in terms of four effects: interest rates, growth, more spending, and lower tax revenue. Okay, so and I said that we were going to actually examine these in with the help of a little spreadsheet. So I'm going to go to that spreadsheet now. So this is our uh, um, coronavirus sandbox, and I call it that because it helps us visualize. So I want to stress that I took some numbers from the Congressional Budget Office, and I put them, and we're just going to do 2 years here. We could do more years, but 2 years is kind of we'll get the picture across here. So, and all these numbers are percent of GDP. So the idea is we're going to start off here with what they had originally forecast. This is the CBO. So you can see that um, in 2019, they had originally the CBO had originally forecast that spending was going to be 19.2% of GDP, but then they thought, well, okay, they sort of took into account all of the required spending, what we call the entitlements, and they noted that according to their best guess, it would actually go up a little bit from to 0.4% of GDP to 19.6. Okay, um, now on top of that, okay, we can put in a number in any of these cells here that have the yellow and the red is where you feel free to change that, make your estimate, okay? Um, now, I'm going to show you a little drop down here. Now, the other thing is that we have interest payments and we have some some estimates, and we're going to use the formula that I said that is the interest rate, which is down here, and that's going to be times the debt that was outstanding. Okay, so you're going to see here, and then we also have a forecast of revenues. So once again, we were expecting that the economy was going to grow a little bit, and that was going to boost revenues here. And so here was the original primary deficit. The original primary deficit was primary spending minus primary revenues. Um, and then we also have uh, the, the, the interest payments here, which is, as I said, is the interest rate times last period's debt. So we have this formula here, and now we're taking into account both interest rates and rate of growth of GDP. And we have some memo items down here. Here's GDP. Here's our pre-COVID number. So we were expecting something on the order of 22 billion trillion. We were expecting about 22 billion trillion of GDP. Um, and we were expecting GDP to grow at 4.2%. I should mention this is nominal growth, so it's real growth of about 2%, and then CPI of about 2%. And we were expecting the interest rates, the overall interest rates on government debt to be about 2%. Okay, now you can see here that we have a little drop down here for we'll call the COVID effect. And we have some COVID effects here. So first of all, we made some estimates. I made some estimates, and I just did them very quickly. You can feel free to change them, but primary spending would go up by approximately 3 trillion, and that's about another 14%. So it would approximately double. It would approximately double. Which is you can look. I'm not sure if that's the exact number, but if you want to do a little investigation, you can do that. In terms of revenue, I'm expecting revenues to go down very dramatically by 5% of GDP. I'm expecting GDP itself to fall by about 1 trillion. Now, once again, that these are sort of rough numbers. And then finally, I'm expecting, because of the Fed's intervention, that they're purchasing government debt and they're purchasing other assets, they're keeping interest rates near zero. So that's going to have a very dramatic impact on government debt. So interest rates. So you can see here now with this little drop down, I'm going to implement the COVID effects here. And you can see what happened here. Okay, so you can see that now primary spending, instead of its previous number, which is about 19.6, now it's 33.6, which is a substantial increase. You can see that interest payments, they've actually gone down. Why is that? Because the interest rate has gone down to just above zero. You can see that revenues have gone down from about 16% of GDP to 11.2% of GDP. I want to mention also that our growth rate, this is now, I'm being especially severe here. Instead of having a 4.2 percent increase in GDP, we're forecasting a decrease of 1%, which is very, very, very big. You don't see that and on a yearly basis. This is a very, very big decrease. And you're going to see. So we're going to put this all together. So now I'm going to just show you here, without the COVID impact, our debt to GDP would have risen from about 79% to a little bit over 80% of GDP. I want to mention that this is a consolidated debt number that includes the Social Security Trust Fund. If we leave that out, actually, the debt numbers are actually quite a bit higher. But most economists would agree that if you want to do the most comprehensive number, you have to put the Social Security Trust Fund in. But then let's see, when we put the COVID effect in, okay, this rises to now 102% of GDP. And the idea here is that, okay, as you saw from that chart previously, is that sometime in the next 10 or 15 years, we were going to get to 100% of GDP anyway. And can a country have a debt ratio of 100% of GDP? Well, they can. It depends. There are countries that have debt ratios that are high, and it's not necessarily a good thing, because having such a high debt ratio, it really ties the hands of your government. You're not able to spend the money on the things that you may need to spend. For example, healthcare. For example, education. For example, defense. So this debt problem is a big big political issue that could likely threaten the ability of the government to perform necessary functions in the years to come. So this is why, anyway, the, this is why I emphasized, and to get back to the original issue, and we'll go back to the slide here. Okay, whether the pandemic is creating a problem, and the answer is the problem has just made it worse. The pandemic has just made the problem worse. It's brought the issue forward. Okay, so in any event, I hope that if you like, we can talk about this during the sync session. Okay, and I hope you enjoy this. Any comments welcome. Thank you very much.